LAC. Yeah, it was just I literally found it randomly through a space bar. I was just space barring through like one of those old lists I have, and then hang on, let's find it. Let's take a look. Lithium Americas Corporation. Yeah, there we go. I mean, it was already squeezing in terms of your oscillators, right? So your 50-day, 200-day, yearly, EMA and MA, so on and so forth. But the main reason I called this wasn't even because of the oscillator indicators. If you were to turn that off, like I already put in the chat, the main reason, and I believe I'm not sharing my screen, so let me share my screen one sec. There we go. Just let me know if you guys can see that and we can get started. I don't have proper Wi-Fi. I'm literally using my mobile data to hotspot my laptop basically. So it might be a bit, the quality might be a bit low. But as long as you guys can see it, that's the main thing. Okay.
Looks good.
Yeah. So
you're streaming fresh. You're not lagging.
Okay, that's good. Thanks, bro. The main reason this was called was simply because of where we were in the charts, right? The stock was absolutely beaten down, as we can see. Pretty much came back all the way to its 2020 lows, which is the lowest point on the chart in terms of the data that's loaded so far anyway, right? There's your 2020 lows. And for your last foreseeable significant sort of time frame, let's say over the last decade, that was the lows to consider. That, like 2016, for example, right? 2015, so on and so forth. Yeah, 2015 gave us these lows over here. But the main lows on the chart were literally between that 2019 and the 2020 buyer-seller zone. Just one level we marked out, right? That's the 19 and the 12-month buyer-seller zone. On top of that, we also had, of course, the 382 to the 2.618, right? The reciprocal ratios coming into play, the 2.24 and then the 2.618, which is what we had marked down. Once we went down to those significant levels and we didn't quite hit the 2.618, doesn't matter, right? We had that 2019 and 2020 yearly level, 2.11, as the actual low. What did we do? We consolidated, and this is what I mean. Typically, when I say I'm putting in structure, newer people don't really know what I'm talking about. What I want to see is once you hit your higher time frame significant levels, what kind of price action is being developed, right? What's the candle body closes? What's the wicks? What's the highs, the lows that's coming in, the liquidity that's being taken, all of that together. And even if you think in terms of trap traders, for those of you that have done advanced, what is all of that cumulatively telling us, right? Even if we don't look at trap traders, this is now telling us once we've hit the key level on the daily, double bottom, right? Double bottom to a spike up and then a slow bleed off. But that slow bleed off now did not go and resume trend to the downside. Once it came down, we put in a macro M shape, right? We put in a bullish harmonic structure. We have the 2.618 and the 886, a nice PRZ going for us right here. Then what happens? Again, double bottom, right? At the PRZ, there's sellers trying to take control at the PRZ, but we can see that the sellers are not succeeding in taking control at these lows, right? Sellers were not rewarded here. Sellers were not rewarded here. And what that's done is you've gone and confirmed now that this very important area that you've tapped and then the high low they've created on the macro here with the double bottom, all happening around completed wave structures, around harmonic areas, right? They're valid. People are stepping in, right? That means you now have very, very bullish buy structure locally speaking, right? Even though you look at this chart, someone wonders, how can you possibly be bullish down over here? The question isn't where are you in the chart. The question is what kind of price action is coming in at the area you're in. And before even that, is the area you're in significant technically, right? Number one, this area was very, very significant technically. And number two, the price action that came in at those significant levels were biasing bullishness rather than bearishness. Because anytime sellers attempted to take these lows, we see they were trapped, right? So the reason I called this wasn't because I knew that something like, I knew that America was going to start buying this and putting this into their portfolio. Obviously, we didn't know nothing about that, right? All we know is this is now at an area where the stock looks absolutely beaten down. It's done nothing but go down, down, down. Anyone trying to buy this since all the way up over here has been getting liquidated, or they're just holding deeply in the red. Eventually, you get to an area where it's just too good to ignore. And it's not just the fact it's at cheap prices, the fact it's at cheap prices, and then you have actionable price action coming in. That's the key thing, right? That's the reason I called this one. And then obviously, this was called in April, I believe, right? April, was it April? I might be getting the dates mixed up. But this was called months ahead, right? Saying don't be surprised if good news comes out, because typically, like I said, your charts are always going to front run like news, right? TA is always going to front run news. So after you hit such an important area, and then you've got the buyers showing strength, sellers not exactly taking control, you've got that bullish news to actually push this to the upside. And what did you do? Literally one weekly candle, right? You went from our entry for 175% total move up. And where did you go? You supply zone from history, right? First and foremost, the most obvious place in the chart. Supply zone from history. Why? There is liquidity here, right? These are highs in the past. Highs, highs. There is obviously liquidity here. Also, on top of that, what is this? This is also the 1.618, the primary projection of that M shape, right? There is T1, there is T2. Above T2 and above the A, but no, the only target you have, right? If you're talking core harmonics, is the 1.618, the primary projection, $6.99. That was in confluence with the liquidity over here. You haven't even taken out that high, or you haven't actually taken it out. So I wouldn't be surprised if you did have one more rally higher to take this out. Maybe go and hit the order block a bit higher, double digits. If not, go down, give us a high low somewhere around $5, $4, whatever, right? You see the high low coming in, and you see the continuation of the structure now. You see SFPs, again, sellers trying to take control, not being successful. You've got trap sellers, so on and so forth. If we see that, if you missed this originally, you might be able to get under the buy-in at the actual confirmation of the trend shift now. Because you take this out, put a higher low in, technically speaking, that's your first higher time frame shift in structure, right? It'd be even nice if you took these out and then put a higher low in, which you haven't done yet. So that one more drive up might very well be possible. But this was otherwise a very, very, the whole reason I gave this was a technical standpoint, right? This is literally just TA at its finest. It's not because I knew there was going to be I knew for a fact there was going to be good news coming out. All I said was, look, don't be surprised if good news does come out. But the main reason for giving this play was because it was at an actionable area, right? So that is how you sort of use the principles that we learn in core, and some of you who've done advanced as well together. And what I really mean when I say I'm looking for bullish structure to come in, because for the people that don't know how to read price action, it just seems like a generic sentence. But for those that do know how to read price action, obviously people have their own ways of looking at things. Someone else might look at this a bit differently. But for me, I'm just looking at structure, looking at it in relation to trap traders, in relation to buying versus selling, in relation to the volume, so on and so forth, right? And then deciding which side is ultimately biasing the edge. And then whichever side that may be, I'm going to take a directional bet on that side, right? That's all this was. I know that was a bit long-winded, but just wanted to give like a thorough explanation to really start this off today. So does anyone have any questions about that execution there? Yeah, we could take a look at those stocks, brother. I think the German one you put up really looks really good. I've not really had a chance to look at the other ones properly yet. But yeah, so that was the reason behind LAC, right? When I called Baba back in the that's British Airways. When I called not British Airways, Boeing Company. When I called Baba back in the day, it was for the same reason, right? There's so many. When I called ClearSpark back in the day, it was for the same reason. There were reasons to be in that trade over anything else, right? The structure was coming in. When I entered, now Rolls-Royce wasn't a call. I only sort of talked about this with my close ones, right? Our friends and stuff. But the reason I entered Rolls-Royce, they were all the same, right? Just bear with me, guys. Like I said, my Wi-Fi is absolutely trash, so it's taking ages to even just swap between charts. Neo, another one, right? That's 2x for us. Neo's 2x, LAC is 2x, more than 2x. Neo's more than 2x as well. And these will keep grinding higher, in my opinion. Jesus Christ. Just give me a second. Just going to change tabs for now because that's taking it. There we go. Okay. Same reason why I call NEO, right? Because I really like the stocks beaten down. We have loads of trap sellers. And then you come down to a very, very actionable area where loads of key areas have completed, right? Same reason why I call NEO. Although I don't know why the TA is not loading up. Maybe over here. I think it's just a slow Wi-Fi. None of the TS loading up. Yeah, BlackBerry we'll look at as well. One of these has the actual proper TA for NEO in it. It's just not loading for some reason. Don't know where it's gone. But it's alright. I mean, the NEO is already in the previous streams. We've already gone over this one, right? But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter what I'm looking at. Like when it comes to looking at structure, when it comes to looking at price action around key levels, they all remain the same, right? So anyway, before we'll go into those stocks that's all mentioned a bit later. Let's quickly look at Bitcoin. Let's look at total wants, so on and so forth, right? Because obviously we know crypto's taken a big shit. Especially over the last 2 weeks, right? Especially the last week where I've been away from my laptop. That's when the market decides to take a collective nosedive. So let's take a look at everything. And we'll move on from there. So let's go to focus. Before I start today, how are you guys getting along with the sessions? I'm guessing pretty much everyone's gone through them actually. The core and advanced. Nathan, bro, I gave you access to the latest videos for core, by the way, on the email that you sent me in chat a while back, because I realized I hadn't done that yet, so you should have got a link for that. So there'll be more stuff in there than what we went over. No problem, bro. Also, as a reminder for those of you who have only done core, you have until the 14th/15th of October. Okay, because this server, obviously, like I said, right from the start, is for people who've done core and advanced, right? Just to keep it fair. So until I'm back in London, while I'm still traveling, all of you guys have access to the server, full server, all the streams, everything. Make the most of it. You know, if you need help, message me, ping the people in the chat as well, because there's many people who've completed everything. They're really good at what they do now. But you have until the 14th/15th of October to be in the server. After that, I will be pivoting back to just core plus advanced, right? Because originally that's what the server was for. The reason I let everyone in here for now is because obviously I didn't have the time to finish the one-on-ones with everyone individually. So as a compensation for that, just let everyone in for the duration of the sessions, basically. But until then, like I said, everyone has access to everything. So just make the most of it, and hopefully, while you guys are still here, especially core only people, we'll still be able to get some nice swing entries in. But yeah, let's take a look. We begin with Bitcoin, right? Because this is the interesting one. So let's take a look. We had a weekly lower high at the ABCD 1.4 and 4. This one right over here. However, would I say the structure looks distributive? Not really, right? Not yet. I feel like the more structure builds at the highs looking like this, the easier it is to fall into that. Okay, it's distributive. Okay, it's distributive. Okay, it's distributive. But until trend is broken, quote unquote distributive structure doesn't really mean much, right? Because people can say this is distributive all they want. What time frame are you referring to? If you say this is looking distributive on the weekly, I'd say jumping the gun a bit too soon because the trend hasn't shifted yet, right? The trend hasn't shifted. Your last high low is around whatever price that is, 98. Until you go take that out and then put a lower high in, then you have confirmation that distributive structure looks real and also has proven to be real, right? So then that massive impulse you get off that lower high, that would be your high confidence short. Right now, if we take a look at Bitcoin, right? Before I even get into my own particular system, if we look at it very, very simplistically in ways pretty much everyone does, right? For example, let's take a look at it in terms of oscillators. Here's your 50-week moving average, right? And the reason I put this up is because we can see, if you wanted to explain the bull market in one word right now, it'd be the 50 MA. Are you above the 50 MA or are you below the 50 MA? Because you can see, anytime we've broken above the 50 MA and held above it, Bitcoin has kept its trend intact, right? Anytime we've broken above the resistance first, broken above, ever since we broke above the 50 MA, we've never broken below again. In fact, anytime we overextend, right, loads of aggressive buying comes on, there's these periods you can see in Bitcoin, almost, just think of it like wave structures. That's what they are. Impulse is up. If you're talking impulses, right, macro impulse is up. You hit some macro resistance levels, right? We know there were ABCDs over here completing, right? We hit some macro resistance levels. Grab liquidity from your macro areas, right? You have loads of trap traders. And then what happens? Bitcoin simply consolidates. Simply consolidates. And yet, during those periods of consolidation is where you see, on a daily basis, 500 million liquidated from the crypto markets, right? On a weekly basis, you have 1 billion liquidated from crypto markets, so on and so forth, because that consolidation period is where everyone blows their accounts. Over leveraged people get absolutely wrecked, right? And then, even though your trend is still intact, there's going to be people calling tops every single time. They're going to be posting that one short entry they caught after being wrong 99 times, right? And then they'll be cheering because you'll have momentary red, only for them to all to be wiped out once again, right? People will be breakout longers will once again come in, because now, like, when you're consolidating, maybe local structure is in a downtrend, maybe your daily, your 4 hours in a downtrend, your weekly is still to the upside, we can see, right? But locally speaking, maybe in a downtrend, but people jump the gun too early, they're long in resistance at the completion of W shapes now, right? Bearish harmonics, only for both sides to get chopped up. Look at the chart on a weekly basis and tell me that loads of damage has been done to this chart. It hasn't, right? All you did, move up after you've had such an insane rally, cool off period to where, once again, the 50 MA. When the 50 MA is held, you have your next insane move up, rinse and repeat. People get really, really euphoric. But where do people get euphoric? Once again now, these are your targets I gave way ahead of time, right? The macro ABCDs. 2.24 was the first one. 2.618 was the second. You've gone and hit your next wave structure targets according to that 382. Your first two reciprocal ratios, right? 2.24 and the main one, 2.618, have been hit. And yet, look, aggressive buying, do you see it coming on the way up? No, it only comes up once you hit these areas, because that's just how market psychology is, right? Loads of aggressive buying came in, even though we had no confirmation now that we're actually going to be going above these key levels. Again, what happens? People keep hammering, people keep butting their heads against this resistance, only to be met with supply, right? There's a supply overhang. We can see there is no kind of body closes, especially above that 2.618, there isn't. If you think of this like a zone, the 2.24 to the 2.618 as zone 1, and the 3.14 to the 3.618 as zone 2, we've hit zone 1, and we can clearly see there is huge supply in zone 1. We haven't broken above, right? Yet people will keep longing. And once the aggressive buyers have run out of gas, and we still have a supply overhang, the only logical direction then is to the downside. Where do you go back to once again? The same, your 50-week moving average. Once you hold that, move back to the upside, and this time you hit the bottom of our next reciprocal zone of the same wave structure, 382, we've got the pi, 3.14, and ultimately the 3.618 next, right? We've SFP'd at the pi level right over here, and for now, once again, we have choppy wave structure, we have choppy price action coming in, right? Both sides of the market will get chopped. The people who are so confident they've called the top, I wouldn't be surprised if they get stopped out, because I don't think the market has topped out yet, right? I don't think so. Why? We're still above the 50 moving average. If you want to keep it very simple, not even think about terms of just lines, but think about terms of what's actually been working so far during this uptrend, the 50-week moving average. Anytime we've been holding this, the trend has resumed. So until proven otherwise, I'm going to stick with the trend is your friend. As long as we hold the 50-week moving average, I think we're good to go to the upside. And of course, that's also if there is no guarantees we have to come back to the 50-week moving average. For all you know, if we double bottom here, it could impulse up higher. In fact, if I look at this and we go to the daily, right? And let's now look at this more in terms of more than just a On the daily, we're below our 50-week moving average, but that's fine, right? What I'm interested in is the higher time frame trend, because I am mainly in spot right now. I'm not really leverage trading right now. I'm mainly in spot. I'm traveling. I don't have much screen time. Leverage trading would just absolutely destroy me, right? I'm still in my swings from the lows, right? So if the swings are in profits, the stop losses are break even, right? If they get hit, they get hit. If not, then I'm just in cash waiting to enter new positions, right? I'm not going to be leverage trading when I know I've got barely any screen time, right? But if we manage to double bottom in this area, understand what's happening. It's happened once before, right? Where sellers attempt to get to take these lows, they haven't been successful. Why is this white zone important? This is your 2025 first biannual sector, right, or section rather. So basically, January to June, right? January, February, March, April, May, June. Your first 6 months. We know this is representing the seller zone, right? This is the seller zone of your last quarter, right? Which is right over here. That's your seller zone of the last quarter, right? What we're saying is this is representing the area where in the last 6 months of this year, sellers were in control between 108,986 to 106,828. Sellers were in control from January to June. By the time the candle closed, that is the area where sellers retained control. And yet, even in the face of all this uncertainty, even in the face of all of this bearish post, all these liquidations, best you have yet to go and even reclaim that as resistance. It is still holding a support, right? So even in terms of my own system now, you can see as long as you're above this, there is nothing to worry about. As long as this is support, you're literally above the area where in the last 6 months sellers were in control, buyers are taking control. And for now, buyers are still in control, right? Doesn't mean, it can change over the next week, right? A candle might come in that absolutely destroys this rhetoric. It might get a bearish engulfing candle to the downside. And then after that, you'd really have to watch to see, do we reclaim or do we start SFPing this area? If we start doing that, that would look very, very ugly, right? But for now, that's not the case, right? Even on the weekly. If we start SFPing on a daily, then I think we get further drops towards 101. And ultimately, like I said, 50-week moving average is what I want to be held for trend to be resuming to the upside. Right, but let's say that we don't get that, right? For now, is there any? Could we see anything else, right? Well, literally just looking at this, if I was to turn this off now, real quick, not that one. Sorry, if I turn this off, I'll turn this back on. Looking at this, that I'm literally, this is like built into my head, like a Jarvis helmet from Iron Man. That looks like a 618 to me. There you go, right? So, at a minimum, if this is the low, which very close to an 886, not quite an 886, but close, right? Very, very close to an 886. If that is the low, and we have a 618 here, and the 618 yielded us with trap traders, so we already know that the 618 was respected. Look at the amount of trap traders that's been going on over here. Then we have some areas where Bitcoin could once again go to. Now, this is not, of course, going to be giving you new highs, right? If it only goes to the 786. But nonetheless, that's going to be going towards 120k Bitcoin should this be the low, right? Like I said, should this be the low. For now, you're trying to get back above the ABCD 2.618 of your macro structure, which you know is very important to do. Resistance, 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 resistance. As long as that support, again, the range is very clear. 2.618, 3.14. That's your range, right? And again, for those of you wondering where that came from, that's that absolutely macro wave structure. ABC 382. 2.24, 2.618. That's the 2.618 we're talking about, right? But as long as we're above this, in terms of technical levels, you're biasing upside. Right now, you've got more structure that's been created on the way down. You've got for example, you've got a supply zone over here, right? 113k seems to be very big resistance for now, right? That 113, got a supply zone. We need to get above that. Then we need to get above this B point. Work needs to be done by the bulls, but that's going to come, in my opinion. As long as this is held, that's going to come. It's a matter of time, right? For 618, 786. We know if we get above the 786, then what we're looking at the 886, right? The 886 is going to take us to 122,293. And should we go and flip the B point into support after hitting all of these levels, right? And not go to the downside or resume higher, what can a 618 give us? A 618 can give us a 1.618, in which case we are referencing, of course, the crab. And the 1.618 is going to take us to basically 134,000, right? So you'd have this target between 132,063 to 134,768. Now, that's all they are. This is just an idea for now. Remember, harmonic is not complete until the D point has been hit, right? So even that 786 has not been hit yet. These are all just potential harmonics that could come to play. But I'm drawing them on to try and visualize what kind of wave structure could we get should scenario A being, should this support hold, what kind of scenario, what kind of structure could we get based on the ratios that I've hit so far, right? 786, 886, 1.618. If the white zone holds, that's the kind of targets we're looking at if this wave structure comes to pass. So those three become really, really nice target, right? And now, using that, and then using more TA, like, 2.618, so on and so forth, should you want to scalp the swing or scalp Bitcoin, you know where you would cut, you know what you would do. Like, now when it comes to scalping, for those of you that have done only core, you're going to find it way harder than those of you obviously that have already done core and advanced, because like those of you that have done advanced know, we go way more in depth into scalping in advanced, right? So the whole point of advanced is core is to show you guys how to actually find significant levels, how to read price structure, and more importantly, get you guys used to the higher time frame trading. There's no point in lower time frame trading if you can't work your way around a higher time frame chart. But for those of you guys that have done advanced and want to scalp, these would be the key levels you use to scalp anyway. You can throw your log chart on top of this. You can throw your volume profiles on top of this for extra confluence. Whichever one you prefer, but you're going with this macro thesis. As long as this holds, range-wise, you have this entire range to play. If it doesn't hold and 107, 907, so on and so forth starts turning to resistance, then there's the possibility of 101, 369 all the way down basically to the 50-week moving average being hit. That's how I see Bitcoin so far, right? Does that make sense, guys? I've been talking for a little bit. Yeah, LAC would be nice there. But does what I went over on Bitcoin make sense to everybody? Are you guys in agreement? Do you guys disagree? Yeah, it's just a nice way of visualizing it, right? Because sometimes you just want to like take away the noise and just look at it objectively. On the weekly, the 50-week moving average, as long as we've held this, we've just kept bottling it to the upside. So until that breaks, that's something I'm just going to keep an eye on, right? Now, like I mentioned earlier, I would also like to, I've not looked at this with you guys in a while, so let's go over global liquidity, right? So this is TPO, one of the things we do over advanced. We do not need that right now. That's for scalping. I do not use TPOs for higher time frame. Typically speaking, this is for lower time frame. So what do I need to do? I need to go to candles. And then I'm turning on, where is it? Global liquidity index with, that's right. Okay, so if you guys remember the trick that I showed you with the global liquidity index, right? It is simply this. If I go to the Bitcoin chart again, there we go. The trick I showed you guys was just look at the global liquidity index as a 75-day minimum to a 3-month lag, right? And typically 3-month lags do really, really well with this one. But for this, if you're confused, for example, if we take a look, right? If you compare the highs and the lows of the global liquidity index, right? And I've got my own settings for this. I'll go over that under the time. For those of you not familiar with this one. But if you compare the high and the lows, the global liquidity index to the Bitcoin chart, there is this correlation where at a minimum 75 days to a maximum of 3 months, right? There's a correlation, there's a lag between the peaks of each and the troughs of each, right? So for example, this peak right over here came in September of 2024, right? So if we take a look at when Bitcoin topped out, December of 2024, start of January. So end of September, start of October basically is when global liquidity topped out. What's 3 months after that? October, November, December, right? So end of December / start of January is when Bitcoin topped out. 3-month lag. The low came in on global liquidity here where? Right, the low came in 6th of January 2025. When did the low on Bitcoin come in? March 2025. Again, 3-month lag, right? If you look at this low over here on Bitcoin, June 2024, right? With this low here, August, right? And then the ultimate low came in when? September, or rather confirmation. So the lows were confirmed 3 months later again, right? But after 3 months after global liquidity bottomed out is when Bitcoin bottomed out and resumed up. So we know this is matched, this is matched, this is matched, right? Again, look to the left. When did this peak come in? December of 2023, basically the end of December. When did this peak come in? Right? March of 2024, again, 3 months later. So you can see very, very clearly that this 75 days to, on a more accurate basis, 3 month, right? On a more, let's say, what seems to happen more is the 3 month. We have this sort of 3 month lag that's coming in between the tops and the bottoms of global liquidity and Bitcoin. Does it mean it's going to happen every single time? No. But once again, until it breaks, I'm going to keep using it, right? Do we see a clear top on global liquidity? Rather, where is the last top that we see on global liquidity? Well, the last one happened June of 2025. So when did this top come in? July/August, right? So again, not exactly 3 months, but like I said, 75 days to 3 months is typically what you're looking at, right? So we have this drawdown in global liquidity, right, which is now giving us this delayed drawdown here. And of course, we could spike down a bit lower. Like I said, there's breathing room until the 50 MA, right, where I wouldn't be stressed whatsoever. But we did have this another spike up on global liquidity, and that spike up, if this plays like it's been playing so far, should give us a new drive up in Bitcoin. That's another thing I'm looking at. 75 days to 3 month lag. Right, since global liquidity made a new high, I would want Bitcoin to go and put in a new high as well. And if this over here where we are right now is the bottom, again, then like I said, the new high could come in the form of that 1.618, right? That crab we looked at earlier at around 134, whatever K that was, right? So even in terms of global liquidity, the fact that global liquidity is still putting in high highs and high lows is what makes another reason why I think Bitcoin hasn't topped out yet. Right? So that's another correlation that I'm looking at. At the end of the day, the market doesn't give a shit what I think, right? I could be looking at all these correlations rather, and if the market wills it to be a 30% new tomorrow morning, then that's what's going to happen, right? But obviously, no one can predict that with 100% certainty. What we can look at is, again, patterns. What's happened in the past? What kind of patterns do we notice, right? Can we execute off these? Does this have a hit rate? And just looking at all of this, right? That is my reason for thinking that I don't think we've topped out yet. I could be wrong. Of course I could be wrong, right? Just because this has happened every single time so far does not mean it needs to hold up this particular time. But like I said, until it's broken, no one knows when it's going to break. Everyone thought it was going to break here, and then everyone thought it was going to break here. It kept proving everyone wrong, right? So that's another reason why I don't think we've topped out yet. Global liquidity is still making higher highs and higher lows. Our fiat's still getting, debasement is still underway, right? So I'd be very surprised if they don't give us a new high on Bitcoin, right? If we get a new high on Bitcoin by the end of the year, that'd be amazing in my opinion. I don't know if we get it, but it'd be absolutely amazing. If not, then, like I said, we just take the normal TA, see what kind of reaction we get here. Do we hold the 50-week moving average or not? If all of those are lost and then still lower highs are coming in after that, then we can talk about, okay, this looks toppy now. The distributed structure is falling through. We're getting perhaps inverted smileys, so on and so forth, right? But again, for me to talk like that and for me to go down that path, that needs to be broken. I don't care if I don't catch the exact top. I'd rather have a sound argument for why I'm flipping bearish versus why I'm staying bullish. And right now, the way I'm looking at the charts, I've got more convincing arguments for why I should remain bullish, right? On the higher time frame, of course, the lower time frame is a different story, right? When I talk like this, I'm referring to the higher time frame, referring to our long-term spot position, so on and so forth, right? Why I would remain bullish for now rather than flip bearish, right? So that's my reasons for having Bitcoin, or rather thinking that why Bitcoin hasn't topped out yet. And Bitcoin isn't even the main thing I would be in, right? Like I said, like, Bitcoin, as we've gone higher and higher and higher, for my actual trading Bitcoin bag, right, I've reduced my position, taken profits, rotated a big chunk into ETH, like I said, right? I secured about 80,000 pounds in ETH in profits, right? And that's because, of course, ETH was the next mover. ETH against BTC looked really good, right? So I don't think Bitcoin is the one that's got the highest ROI anymore. I don't. But that doesn't mean you can't make money from it. You can still scalp Bitcoin and make a lot of money. You can still take medium time frame trades on this if you get a really good scalp to swing opportunity, so on and so forth, right? If you don't think this is topped out. But that is my reasons for why I think Bitcoin hasn't topped out yet, why I think we probably could get one more drive up. And of course, we're going to be pairing this with Bitcoin dominance, so on and so forth, right? But I think until something serious happens that damages all the reasons we've been bullish this entire move up so far, I'm optimistically cautious here. Sorry, I'm cautiously optimistic rather, that we haven't topped out and we go higher still. Now, I'm not going to pretend like everything's all sunshine and rainbows, right? Obviously, this move down we've had on alts, it's not nice, right? Yes, we're still in the green, right? I gave you guys literally the peak or lows on the macros, right? I even posted the screenshots the other day. Even though they're down from where they were even 2 weeks ago, we're still in the green. AVAX is still about 25%, SWI still about 28%, SAY still about 28%, right? Many things are still, and on an average of, let's say, 26% up from the lows, right? Across what we have. Aptos is literally one of the only ones in the red. ENA is still like 70% up, right, from the lows. But just because we're green, I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't sting that on my main ports I've gone from, in terms of unrealized profits, I've gone down about 300k, right? Over the last, over the last week and a half that this dump happened. And the reason for that is because I didn't enter those trades only for a 250, 300k profits, right? My targets, if they were to hit, whenever alts hit these targets, my profits, I want them to be in the 7 figures, right? So I'm not going to close too early, right? And that's the reason I'm still holding my old positions, right? Yes, it stings that I'm down, I'm literally down a house, right? But that's not in the red. That's in, from unrealized profits, that's how much, that's how much is eaten back into the unrealized profits. It's still in the green, but still down from where we were. And yes, that's painful. When you look at it, you're going to feel some type of way, like, damn. But you've got to look at the bigger picture here. Would you rather have closed that there and then been happy in the moment? Or if our thesis is correct and our alts do go, right, AVAX does eventually go to $80, for example, right, $60 to $80, which technically speaking is the target I'm looking at. Say it does go to $1 something, right? ETH does go and put new highs in. Would I be happy that I secured 300k? Or would I be absolutely pissed at myself if I didn't stick through to my trading plan at the end, right? And the reason I'm trading the way I'm trading right now is because it's what's right for me, right? And that's what I'm sharing with you guys, what's right for me. The way I'm doing things might not be right for you, right? You might be more of a trader. You might be affected way more, for example, by the drops like these that happen, right? But for me, I would be way more pissed if I took, the profits that I closed too early, and then after that, prices end up going to the targets I was looking at anyway, technically speaking, and I simply closed too early because I just got shook out, I just got scared, right? For me, being being up 300k, being down 300k, swings like this, it's not life changing. Right, that's the reason I'm holding my spot positions. I want it to be life changing. I think I stopped all the way down at break even. Right, I reduced my risk. We've already secured profits, like I said. Right, ETH we secured, BTC we've merked, ENA we've merked, and I've shared with you guys in terms of challenge accounts. Right, but of course I've been ghosting that with bigger size on my I've been on my main account as well. Right, so we already secured some profits. I'm happy with that. Right. So should everything get stopped out and the market be over, I'm still going to have secured 6 figures, right, profits, but it's just not going to be, it's still going to be peak because it's not going to be the 7 figures that I was hoping to secure should the market top out here, basically. But I don't think we will. By the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if you've literally, October, if you look at seasonality, Bitcoin has very, very bullish Octobers typically, right? October's, November, so on and so forth. So if seasonality plays out again and all of that goes green, then I think these also have a very, very nice chance. Honestly, like I said, I'm still cautiously optimistic, but optimistic nonetheless, right? Not like, oh, it might go up. I'm still, my bias is still, I think we will go up. I want ETH against BTC to come down, put a higher low in. I'm going to be sizing into this finally, right? I was waiting for a sizable drop. Now that these have happened, I'm just going to be slowly scaling into ETH against BTC even more, right? Just slowly scaling in, slowly, just daily bits, literally daily bits. Like I said, I don't have much screen time. So for me, regular DCAs is the way to go right now for the high time frame play. Hopefully we go and we hit that 0.06, so on and so forth targets, right? Once we go there, and if that's what, once we hit these higher targets, that's where I would really expect way more. I'd be way more cautious of potential tops, so on and so forth, right? But like I said, ETH barely scraped all-time highs, and I just don't see that being the market top. That's the easiest for those people that just open shorts at any given moment just to like be in something. That's the easiest shorts of your lives, right? I just don't see that being the easy short that everyone's going to get. ETH barely scraping all-time highs, I just don't see it, right? But like I said, it's not like, it's not like it's all sunshine and rainbows, right? Like I said, in terms of compared to like even a month ago when everything was massively up, in terms of unrealized profits, I'm down, right? Like 300k down, right? 300 something K on my main port. Challenger count also has gone down in unrealized, right? But that's because, again, the point of me giving those all plays, the point of me entering spots at the lows isn't just to take profits every 30% pump and then seesaw between being bullish and bearish every week, right? That's what trading is for, right? If I was actively scalping, if I was actively doing medium trades, scalp to swing, so on and so forth, then yes, I would be. But that's not the point of these higher time frame spot plays that I've given. They're swings, right? And for swings, you got to have conviction if you really want to make the most of it. If something's doubled, like I said, ENA doubled, something else doubled too. We took profits, we took initials out. ETH, we took initials out, right? Many coins have doubled, we took initials out. That liquidity is going straight back into buying these coins. Don't wait for me to buy either, right? If something hits your targets and it's something you're interested in and it hits your targets, just bid, right? Literally, I might be away from my phone like I've been away for the last week, right? I barely had any screen time, like I said, when I'm in Vietnam. I literally got back earlier today. Tomorrow morning, I'm taking a plane and a train to go to Laos, right? For a few days. So when I'm there, I don't even know if I'll have, again, I'm not going to have my laptop in Laos. So there'll be another 3 or 4 days where I won't have access to charts again, right? So you guys know how to find these significant levels, right? So if something hits your levels and you know this is something you want, and you ask yourself, is this a price I would consider buying if markets are absolutely ripping, right? If the answer is yes, then just, especially if it's spot, take the bid. Of course, for leverage, you want to be a bit tighter. You want to have tighter risk management. For spot, if the coin hasn't moved, the higher time frame structure is there. If you're still hovering around the higher time frame levels, right? Then, not financial advice, but personally, I'm still biasing for alts to get that nice move up, hopefully by the end of the year, going into Q1 of next year, right? So that's how I'm going to be positioned for myself. I can't tell you how you need to position. I can't force you to buy, so on and so forth. But I can tell you what I'm going to do. And, whether you want to base your decisions based off how I'm seeing things or whether you want to counter trade me because you differ in opinion, it's completely up to you, right? But just make sure that you've got the holistic picture. You're not just listening to the doomers and gloomers in CT, right? Don't listen to just pure perma bulls. Don't listen to just pure perma bears. Once you've weighed both sides of the charts, what has more sound reasoning, right? What gives you more of an edge right now? Once you figure that out for yourself, that is where you would pull the trigger, right? The coins I'm looking at haven't changed, right? I still think AVAX looks amazing, right? Take a look at AVAX. I think it looks good. The resistance you've broken above. You can consolidate above this. You go higher, right? AVAX looks good. Say another one, in my opinion, that still looks good, right? Right here, that resistance. As long as this resistance turns to support, right? Of course, you need to get above 29 to 31 cents, right? If not, then of course you could drop down to 20. But you have this very, 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 very real support resistance level right over here that where you're staying above for now, right? As long as you can stay above that, eventually you will grind higher, in my opinion. So there's many of these coins that add support right now, right? AVAX, say, Ethereum even, right? If you take a look at what ETH's been doing, I don't think ETH is done. I don't think it's topped out, right? If you take a look, This is main, so it should be here. Just wait for it to load. One sec, guys. Slow ass Wi-Fi. Here we go. If we take a look at what ETH's done, key inflection area, retest. There you go. Resistance, 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 demand zone, retested. 2022, Gilly level, retested. Right? So if this key inflection area retest is successful, well, then we know where the next target is again. Historical price is for mid first, but above that 2021 high, it's going to be back to these targets. And next time we go up, in my opinion, these will get hit for Ethereum. 5,890 to 6,519 for me. I'm not going to give you a 10k ETH target right now because I do not know if 10k ETH is going to get hit this cycle. But these I can definitely see being hit for a new high. Right? So literally look at Ethereum as a prime example. People are calling tops already when literally the area we've used as resistance since March of 2024, we're now going to flip into support. How is this in any way bearish? Explain to me how this is something to fear and to doom over. It's not. The area that was once resistance, where sellers were in control, sellers were in control, sellers were in control, sellers were in control, for now, they are unable to take control. We don't see massive cascading candles below this, right? We see a spike into the mid and buyers defending for now. Now, if the cascade comes, then that's a different story. But that hasn't happened yet. So until it happens, this is a successful retest. And if the retest holds, right, eventually we can't be surprised if we get that spike to the upside. If we look at this locally speaking, look, lows have been raided. If we can reclaim and go higher, we can't be surprised. Right? We just can't. Resistance has flipped to support for now, right? And you have a lot of room for exploration. So like I said, with Ethereum, again, as long as you just look at the trend, right? Your last high low that led to the high is all the way down at 3,380. As long as you're above that, right? 50-week moving average isn't quite as clean like it is in Bitcoin over here, right? For ETH is more about the 200 by the looks of things, or I forget which the blue one is. But I don't think we go down to 1,700 anyway, right? But as long as you're above this, very simple way to look at it. As long as you're above this, you're good. I think we can go and look at ETH here too. One sec. Where's ETH? Yeah, we know why we topped out where we did, right? We know we had the ABCD there. It was a rate of all-time highs. All of these levels were given way at a time again. 786, 1.272. Look at it. No matter how you look at it, this is the most up-to-date historical price ranges on Ethereum. We've retested the boundary between historical price range 5 and historical price range 4. Meaning that right now, buyers are in control of this range boundary. What happens if buyers are in control of the range boundary? Well, typically, it will look for a move back up towards the mid first. That's going to be 4.4k ETH, If that gets flipped into support again, it's going to be the range highs, right? So until we break below this range boundary, again, Ethereum is another one that looks good, right? That is a successful retest. If you're going to scalp this swing, Ethereum is a really good one to do so, right? Because it's easy to manage risks, and this will, once again, Bitcoin and ETH, they'll probably be the first ones to move again, right? If you think Bitcoin hasn't topped out, ETH hasn't topped out, Bitcoin and ETH probably going to move relatively side to side. Bitcoin probably first, and then followed by Ethereum. And then after that, again, Solana and everything else, ETH betas, so on and so forth, will probably get the rotation, right? But Ethereum as well. That is a successful retest for now, right? And again, I can only go off what is currently on the screen, because I don't have a crystal ball that's going to tell you exactly where we're going to bottom. I can only give you advice, not even advice, I can only give you opinion and what I see based off what's on the charts, right? Right now, what I see is a successful retest. And if the successful retest plays out, hopefully we move straight back to the upside. And like I said, hopefully October ends up being green. And once again, just like it's been doing for the last 3 years, keeps whacking the smoke of the bears' faces. And we keep going up, liquidating them. They're going to be silent again for a few. And then they're once again going to try and short the top, right? Just get stopped 99 times, show you the 100th short that they finally catch. And hopefully next time that happens, we will be way closer, if not at the market top. And then we can also appropriately switch into shorts based off how I see things anyway. On macro shorts, swing shorts, so on and so forth, I think the market top's actually in. I do not think, again, that the macro top is currently in, which is why I haven't pivoted to macro swing shorts, right? With Ethereum, you cannot convince me that this right now doesn't look good. area where sellers were in control. We can vividly see, look, sellers. That's a retest, right? So, like I said, just because because of these reasons, I just cannot be with chess saying I think the market's topped right now. These are successful retests on the higher time frame. So once again, I'm going to check back to the chat in case there's any questions. Nice. 136k seems like a bigger reaction area. Yeah, for Bitcoin, there's a lot of levels lining up there for sure, bro. Yeah. Like even if you look at it like this, right? This is a very significant level. We just haven't lost it for now. Your 2025 6-month key levels are all here. We just haven't lost it. So honestly, I would love nothing better than this spike up, because I feel like majority of the people are still thinking lower. People are saying, "Oh, most people thinking higher." I don't think most people think we're gonna go higher, because CT would be so full of balls if everyone thought we were gonna go higher, right? Most people I see are just talking about the cycle top is in, sell everything. I don't think it's in. Again, what I say isn't gospel, guys, right? I can 100% be wrong. The market could have already have topped out for all we know. But you've got to have a thesis, right? If you want to make a lot of money, you've got to have a thesis. You can't. Very few people make a lot of money by flip-flopping what they think every second, right? And that's typically also only works if you are scalping on a super low time frame. In that time frame, you've got to flip-flop between bullish, bearish. In fact, you're not even really trading bullish or bearish. You're really trading liquidity on a lower time frame, right? And reactions. But with swing trading, with spot, right? If you want to make big money, right? If you want to make big money and you're going to have your best shot at making a lot of money at once, based on one particular cycle, you've got to have a thesis. You can't just buy in, get stopped out, or rather not even get stopped out, buy in and sell, buy in and sell, buy in and sell, buy in and sell. If you keep doing that, you're not going to catch the actual moves, right? Remember, keep swing trading very, very simple. Do less, win more. You don't make your money by trying to catch the bottom, trying to sell the top. You make your money spot trading, swing trading, right? The thesis that's worked for me the most, right? The reason my strategy is the way it is, the reason I have my own entry strategy, right? The reason I read TA the way I do, the reason I enter and exit trades the way I do is because I always have one goal in mind when I'm doing swing trading. That is, try to enter with a very, very good average, whether that be for longs or shorts, right? Swing long, swing short, spot buys, right? And the most important thing is you're not trying to catch the bottom and trying to catch the top. You want a good average and you want to capitalize on the bulk of the move. It doesn't matter if you don't sell the top or the bottom, right? It doesn't matter. For example, if this does break down and then a lower high comes in somewhere around here, if you read that, you make the appropriate read there and you realize, okay, there's now distributive structure. Inverted smiley faces. Turning the 6-month levels back into resistance. Losing the 50-week MA. Even though you didn't catch the exact top. If on a macro thesis you see that and you cut your positions here, you've still capitalized on the bulk of the move. You didn't sell the top, you didn't enter the bottom perhaps, but the bulk of the move is where the money's made. And you weren't flip-flopping between every 4-hour candle, every 1-hour candle, every 15-minute candle. You waited for the solid higher time frame reads before making an executive decision. Right, that's just how I prefer to do things on the higher time frame. And which is why I trade the way I do, right? But I think, yeah, this looks, so far, key levels haven't been lost. We see all this doom and gloom, but look where we are. It would make sense if we'd lost trend, right? The way people are talking, saying the cycle top is over, it would make sense if we lost the 50 MA. It would make sense if we lost the trend, but we haven't done that. Look at the chart where we are. Resistances literally still support. The area where we are is literally still above 2025. Just earlier this year, the highs of that. Forget about your previous cycle tops. We're way above that, right? Sellers haven't even managed to take control of your 2025 end of May 2025 highs yet. We're literally at this is the uppermost retest, right? If we're talking retest, this is the first main retest that we have, and sellers still haven't managed to take control yet. And yet you see all the doom and gloom that's coming in. And the reason for this is because most people are over leveraged. They enter at the wrong time, right? They don't manage to catch the lows or the highs, or rather, let's say talking about long specifically right now, right? Again, the reason we should be finding this server anyway, like I said, the reason we're still in the green is because I gave you guys the actual
I gave you guys pretty much the lows for everything, right? We executed at the actual lows. People who didn't do that waited for the 80+% pumps before they started jumping in. Now, you've already missed on the big percentage moves. So what do people do? Slide the leverage meter up. They want to slide the leverage meter up to catch up, basically, right? Those are the only people that are actually in the red and suffering. That's the reason we see so much doom and gloom, even though in terms of whether we are on the chart, if you look at Bitcoin, we're completely fine. In fact, it looks like if you hold this, Bitcoin going for another higher, right? So it's just because people are over leveraged that we really see such huge. Why do you think we're getting billions liquidated off the crypto markets in an hour? It's all leverage. That's the reason so much volume's coming in. We're getting so much volatility. If it was down to spot, we'd hardly have any volatility, right? Leverage is what's making all of this possible. So, like I said, let's quickly go to our macro list, right? Or rather, our master list. We're going to look at the Dixie, so on and so forth as well. Real quick. We're not going to spend too much time on this. But does anyone have any questions so far? If not, I'll move on. Okay, I'll move on. So, first and foremost, Dixie, right? Dixie, looking to get some sort of reaction in here, but look, this looks atrocious, right? Dixie is one. If you're talking atrocious, Dixie is one of them. Below everything on the weekly, right? Yearly levels, 200 EMA, NMA, 50 EMA, everything below everything there. Bouncing off of some macro levels in terms of fibs, but if we actually go to a cleaner chart, so just this. Hang on. Here. If you guys remember the last stream we did, right? What I was saying was, don't be surprised if Dixie does have some sort of reaction from these lows. Why? Because we are at the bottom of the parallel channel, right? But remember where we are? The 382. All we need is that 382 to remain resistance. Even if we go a bit higher, it doesn't really matter, right? The mid of the parallel channel, the EMAs that's above us, the SMAs that's above us, I think those are going to keep acting as resistance. Any relief pump on Dixie for now, I would expect to be lower highs, and we continue to the downside. We want that dollar breaking down as a sign of people fleeing onto risk assets, people being risk on, right? We want that. Dixie's at the bottom of the channel right now. Hence, again, anytime you see this macro uncertainty, every time you see these doom callers on risk on assets, it's going to be in moments like this, right? Because these are the moments where it's make it or break it. People enter trades, people enter longs, so on and so forth, down at these lows, and they're surprised, Pikachu faced when they're getting liquidated, right? This is the most bottom, this is the last, let's say, support that Dixie has in terms of anything before it actually collapses and falls to like 87%, so on and so forth. Not percent, but like, 87 units in, let's say, right? A value of 87. Of course, it's going to be hard. We're not going to just slice through in one candle, right? And of course, since we know there's an inverse correlation, if this is bouncing, we know it's going to be choppy for risk on assets. So again, look at how tight this range is, and yet billions is getting wiped off the crypto market, right? Hundreds and hundreds of millions. It just shows over leverage. That's all it is. People are emotional. People are calling cycle top, so on and so forth, pointing fingers at each other. Everyone's emotional because most people, contrary to what you hear on Twitter or CT or on other servers, most people didn't enter when it was the appropriate time, right? May, April of this year, right? March, when I was frequently saying, alts look good, buy. Hardly anyone actually did, right? CT was bearish as fuck. Most servers weren't entering, especially not swings. And once everything's moved up, people over leverage, right? And that's why you have so much emotional reactions coming in. So, for Dixie, it's at the lows, hence the reaction. But ultimately, I do want a breakdown, right? We want that breakdown. We want that backdrop. If you really want alts to go, you want that backdrop of a Dixie just absolutely dying. You want absolutely just death candles on the Dixie. When that happens, I've got no idea. We might go up, rate some highs, and then come down. We might do this, roll over. We might get it in a week's time. Who knows, right? But whenever it happens, we do want that breakdown towards lower levels on the Dixie, right, as a continuation. Next, what do we have? USDT dominance, right? Nice little reaction back to the upside. Again, not surprising, given we were at big support. There we go, right? 50 EMA for the Dixie, holding it as support for now. But the orange line, which is, let me just quickly remember which one that is. One sec, guys. MA2. That is the 50 SMA, right? That's the 50-day. That's the 50-day SMA. Hang on, have Have I been saying the wrong all this time? There we go. Yeah, 50-day SMA. Sorry, 50-day SMA over here, acting as resistance. And the main thing is, of course, like we said, that red box, that is your main resistance, right? If you look at this on the monthly, we can see you do not have any, and I repeat, you don't have any candle body close in the past above here on the monthly, right? 2020, 2021, 2022. You can see anytime you try to close above here on the monthly, you actually wicked higher to these higher targets, which you've already done again. But you see, candle body closes have always been below here. So even though, yes, we're bouncing up, look at it in the bigger picture. Supply, supply, supply. What is this indicating? Back test, of area that used to be seller controlled, and for now is still seller controlled because you haven't managed to flip the mid of this into support yet. Right? Now, to top it off, you're also back testing, if you look at the daily, the uppermost section of your moving averages. Right there. Your blue line, like I was saying, this blue line, the line of best fit that we've drawn on, right, this has been on the screen for years and years, for those of you that have followed me for that long. That blue line, the line of best fit, that's typically a demand line, right? If once this slows, we can look at it properly. That's where we expect reactions to the upside. What we're now seeing is a, once again, back test from the bottom, right? So again, if we zoom in, look, support. It's going to be support down over here once it loads. But yeah, support, 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 support. Anytime you hit this, you bounce. But what have you got now? A back test with the underside, a back test with the underside of this. If you cannot get above this, that is a bearish back test. After that, you only have one key level to actually lose, which is this outmost line right here that you bounced off of, right? Below that, you've got no diagonals. In terms of your traditional demand line, supply lines, you've got nothing. After that, I expect to run on liquidity, right? Your 2020 low would be your obvious target. Below that, this low, you're just looking for wicks. You're going to take those wicks out, you're going wick hunting. That is what we want. Remember, Dixie, stable coins, they're inversely correlated, right? And stable coins is particularly so with a one-on-one relationship with crypto pretty much, right? Not exactly a one-on-one, but especially with Bitcoin, like if you're looking, it's pretty much a one-on-one relationship, right? So this for me now, I'm going to be looking at this as, can we get a bearish backtest? If we can reclaim this, then that looks absolutely crazy. USD dominance looks bullish, which is going to be bad for crypto. But for now, this is simply, I repeat, the way I see it, right? The way I'm looking at things, a bearish backtest, right? And until proven otherwise, until you go and close above, I'm going to view it as a bearish backtest ongoing right now, right? So both Dixie and USDT dominance on the precipice of either they're going to go much higher after reclaiming key levels, or they're actually on the verge of a breakdown sooner rather than later. Right? I'm hoping for the latter. USDC dominance, once again, going back up, straight to resistance, right? Straight to resistance here. And if the resistance can play out, I'd hope for, once again, move down, right? And this is the thing right over here. Like I said, for me to call a market top, I really have this target. I don't know if it gets hit, right? I don't know if it gets hit, but this macro M shape, again, hasn't changed. Same M shape I've had on for so long, this 886. If you were to hit that, then I'd have a way closer look on the market. Like, okay, we're actually at a very significant area here in terms of a completed wave structure, right? And I'll be thinking to myself, okay, well, if the markets are going to top out here, then there's a reason for why that could happen. Now, you might have more local wave structure here, right? I mean, you don't even have one there, so let's forget about it. But that right there is the macro wave structure. No matter what you're looking at, that's the macro. That's the 886. That's the 0.414 from the low to the high, right? Back down to the low. That's the macro 886. That's what is really significant for me. 3.06 to 2.81%. If we can get there and bullish price action starts coming in, I'll be the first one to start screaming, the market top is probably likely in. I'm positioning swing shorts, so on and so forth. Here we got swing entries to the downside now, right? We're looking at 2-3x isolated swing shorts now to hold through to probably around 2028, 2029-ish, right? From whenever the market tops out. And of course, there is also Bitcoin dominance plus stablecoin dominance, right? Another thing to consider. Why? Because remember, what is this? This is the perfect sort of indicator, perfect measure of strength for altcoins. Why? Because Bitcoin dominance is here and stablecoin dominance, which is USDT plus USDC, the two main stablecoin providers. We know for proper alt season, we want Bitcoin dominance to go down. We also want stablecoin dominance to go down, right? We want people getting out of Bitcoin to get into altcoins. And we also want people spending the USDT to get into altcoins. We don't want people getting out of Bitcoin to get into stables. Basically, we don't want people in stablecoins. We don't want people in Bitcoin. We want everything in alts. Hence why Bitcoin dominance plus stablecoin dominance is a no-brainer to look at. Right? This is showing you the two things collectively that we want bearish for us to have a bullish altcoin market, which is Bitcoin dominance and USDT plus USDC dominance. If this chart is going down, then that means that basically you're seeing that liquidity rotation into alts most likely. If this is going up, then you're seeing the bleed from alts. That big green candle is the whole reason why we've had such a market-wide red on the markets for alts, right? Right over here. Like I said, this has completed a macro W shape, bearish, right? 886s. We might go back up and put a thingy in, a type 2, who knows, right? But hopefully what we get is another lower high and then just death to the downside. Hopefully that's what we get, right? And then the next impulse up we get, hopefully, is the craziest for alts and also a really sharp one for Bitcoin. After that, I think that whatever correction follows after that is probably going to be way more significant than anything we've seen so far. That is when I'd be really, really worried. That is when I would take however much I'm up, even if it's not exactly 7 figures plus like I've got in my head, I will start taking off the table because I'm now aware that another drive up is going to look crazy in terms of your 3 drive pattern and so on and so forth, right? And we're also going to be way closer to hitting those 382s, 4 and 4, 0.5s on these more macro charts, which could yield much, much more moves back to the upside before going lower, which would of course absolutely nuke the altcoin market, right? So after whenever we get the next impulse up, right, I think after that's when we get the really, really big drop. It might not be a bear market drop. It might be more similar to the sort of first drop we had in 2021, right? That sent us from 64K all the way back down to whatever it was before Bitcoin went up for the latter half of the run and put the 69K high in, right? I'm talking a drop of that magnitude. Right? We might see something of that level after the next impulse up is what I'm thinking, right? Chopping into next year perhaps. And because we're probably going to hit very significant levels on, Bitcoin dominance with stablecoin dominance, Bitcoin dominance itself, which of course, again, like I said, many of these have shifted to a downtrend, right? If you're looking at this on these charts, the reason Bitcoin dominance is bouncing, again, you hit the diagonal, right? You hit the diagonal, broke out, retested, but we just want lower highs to come in now. That's it. Maybe go back and test the orange, right? 61% lower high supply zone. Maybe if you get a relief somewhere around there, but we want those lower highs to come in on Bitcoin dominance. We want it to come in on Bitcoin dominance with stablecoin dominance, and then we want continuation back to the downside. Now, total 1, once again, look at that. That is just a retest of what was once resistance, right? Levels projected way ahead of time.
Hey, Weatherman.
Yo, what's up, brother?
Sorry, man. Before you move on, do you mind? How do you get the Bitcoin dominance in the two stablecoin pairs that you had up? How do you input that into TradingView?
So I think if I remember correctly, the way I did this is you go over here, you type in BTC.D, and then you type in plus, and then you type in USDT.D, and then you type in plus, and then you do USDC.D, and then you simply click enter, and that should get you this. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No problem, brother. So, for like I said, for the multitude of these, let's go back to totals before we wrap everything up in terms of the macros, right? Total 1 looks completely fine. Again, that's just a retest, right? Macro targets are still higher, in my opinion. 4.42 trillion, 4.69 trillion, 4.47 trillion, so on and so forth, right? The reason we topped out where we did, double top at the local ABCD 2.24, which was another level given at a time, 382. That's the first target we had, right? The first reciprocal ratio for the 382, remember, is the 2.24, followed by the 2.618, followed by pi 3.14, followed by 3.618, right? So all just wave structures given at a time. We're just ranging, That's it. We're just ranging in between. As long as we're holding this, we're fine. Like I said, even if we don't hold this, guess what we're going to get? In that case, something even better. We're going to get a retest. This is your 50. Retest of the 50 plus the supply line. If that happens, I would expect this to sort of reclaim and then go higher. Hopefully we don't get this. Hopefully we literally just retest and send it, right? That'd be ultimate pain for bears. But even if we get this, I think structure-wise, that would look very, very strong, right? It would be further pain, locally speaking, but on the grand scheme of things, it will give us an even bigger base of support to just catapult off in the future if something like this were to play out, right? So that's total 1. Let's look at total 2. Total 2, we hit the 2020 all-time high again, SFP, straight back down to 2021 seller zone mid. We've gone from the high of your 2021 yearly level to the mid of the 2021 yearly level, right? We might go down and retest our T2 zone. That's if we get below 1.51 trillion, which for now is once again retesting successfully. We might get the orange, right? We might get there's a breakout. We might get the higher time frame retest of this high low before we go higher. Doesn't matter what happens, my target is still up here before the wave structure is complete. We have the ABCD. It's not quite a 786, but very close, right? 1.272. And more importantly, we have the primary projection of the 886 right over there. Nice little zone for us to consider as a PRZ for a potential top to come in. And of course, more wave structures might develop on the way, especially if this pulls back to give us a higher low even deeper. Right? Total 3. Again, double top at all-time highs. I do not think that is it. We are now retesting, right? We know our 886 is somewhere here. We know the Gartley. We're literally retesting our bearish Gartley low. This is the 786 for the bearish Gartley, right? The 886 is slightly higher. If we can flip that into support, guess where this is going? 618. It's not quite a 618, but very close. It's within the tolerance. We're going to go towards the 1.618, wherever that may be. I'm sure I've got another one for that. I might not. One sec. Let me do this. I'm gonna do this. There. 886 is here. Right, so 886, 786, that's your PRZ for the Gartley, basically. Gartley / deep Gartley. If we can get above 1.618, sends us way higher. Right here. So again, we have a crap target. This wave structure is still intact, right? Nothing's changed. Literally nothing's changed. You've just rejected off 2024/2021 yearly levels, retested the mid of the exact same years. The retest is successful, higher we go. Simple TA, right? So as you can see, like, especially things like total 3, yes, they were at resistance. We've had an impulse down from resistance. They have support now, if we're talking. They have, even after we break out, they have higher to go, right? They have higher to go. This is others. Again, above the, on the higher time frame, on the weekly, they're above all the important, anyway, above all the important oscillators, right? Simply rejecting off the fact that T2 was hit, right, for this macro wave structure on the left here. We already hit that T2 once. We hit it again. But once we get above this, again, there's the targets, ABCDs, the 1.13, right? These are the targets I think are very, very possible for us to get to once liquidity really starts rotating. So still, all the totals still look fine. Look, B point, right? B point, flip back into support. 2024 yearly low, support. So we're getting reactions of the levels we need to. Other thing is Bitcoin, massive falling wedge. If we can reclaim that sort of low for other things Bitcoin, again, I think that can eventually get them moved to the upside. What else do we have? We have total DeFi dominance. Don't really look at this one too much. I prefer just looking at total DeFi, but it's nice to look at if you're very, very, very much into DeFi coins, right? Yet if you can hold this support, reclaim it, you've got reasons to target 4.21% and higher. And we have others dominance. Starting to build what looks like a smiley structure to me here. Right, if you can hold this structure here around 7.66%, eventually what I'm really looking for is something that's not changed, right? We'll be looking at this for a long time. A reclaim of that key area here. That's all. That's all we want to see. Reclaim of that key area here. If this key area reclaims, we've got a huge growth potential on others' dominance, right? We're talking higher prices here, or rather in this case, higher percentages. So the totals also look fine, right? Some totals are already moving off the structures they built and they're just looking for consolidation before the next leg higher. Some structures, like for example, others' dominance, haven't actually had the big impulse yet, but they're building structures that could lead to a big impulse, right? If this gets below support again, that's peak. We'd be looking for 6.41% and lower. But the fact of the matter is, that pullback has given us a successful retest of a key area. That's what it is. If the holds, we have no reason why price couldn't go and then start attacking the next target higher, because sellers have attempted to take control of the lows, but for now we're getting a bullish reaction. And again, I can only go off what's on the screen, right? So the totals also look good for now, right? They don't look cooked. They don't look like, oh damn, this looks way too heavy. They don't look like that. It'd be a problem if they did, but they don't, right? So that's if you then consider where Dixie is, consider where stablecoin dominance is, consider where Bitcoin dominance is, consider where Bitcoin plus stablecoin dominance is, and the totals, then we can see then all of a sudden it doesn't become ridiculous to think that perhaps we do have some more juice left in the market, right? And that is the reason why ultimately, that's just a further explanation based off TA and all these different charts of why I'm just playing the market the way I am, right? Again, you don't have to follow me, right? You might get a different read based off your TA, based off the same charts, right? You might have already made enough money for you to be happy. In that case, you've taken profits and you might be done. That's up to you. Right? I can't decide what's good for you financially, right? I'm not a financial advisor, right? I'm simply sharing what I see based on my system. Right? That's what you guys are interested in hearing. So that's been all the totals. That's the macro outlook on things. Right? That's the macro outlook. We've also looked at Bitcoin and ETH. Right? That's the main things I wanted to go over on crypto today. So does anyone have any questions based off what we've gone over there? Oh, nice. Okay, so that's the macros. Again, Bitcoin we've gone over. ETH we've gone over. So go back to focus. Some alts that look really nice, like I've been saying. AVAX. I think AVAX looks nice. In fact, let's do a cleaner chart for this. I always forget. I've got way too many. This one perhaps. One sec. Let's look at AVAX. Come on. Takes a little bit to load. So my Wi-Fi is actually trash here. Again, don't get it twisted. Look where we topped out on AVAX, right? All of this shared, but look what we're doing. Primary projection of what? Your first wave structure. Remember, start from the right, look to the left if you're looking at targets. Here's your first wave structure. 886. That's the first completed wave structure. In terms of, well, not first completed, but that's the most latest, right? 382618 hit back to back, 618 flipped, primary projection hit. So what we've done here is this wave structure is now done, it's finished. Harmonic completed, you hit all the targets. In fact, this was one of the scenarios I described it many times in streams and also in the alt section. I said, if you want to take a leverage trade, right, you want to take a more local trade, not a swing, more local, these are the targets you'd aim for because this is your first target. What are we doing now? Well, this is your macro fixed range volume profile, right? This is your 0.5 standard deviation value area high. You're flipping it into support. If that flips into support, where's the next target in terms of volume profiles? Well, the next area would then be logically this. You have your 618, your next wave structure, which is the crab, right? You have your 618 of the crab, your primary projection, right? Of the crab. Well, not rather your T2 of the crab and your fixed range volume profile, standard deviation 1, 68%. That would become your next target between $40 to $41. AVAX, in my opinion, looks really, really good. All of these resistances right over here flipped. That right there is a retest. Don't get it twisted. That's a retest for now, and that's a successful retest. If this retest holds, I expect AVAX to rally towards $40 to $41 whenever it decides to do so. Time doesn't matter. What's important is price. As long as the price stays above this zone right over here, you can visualize it there, right? That'd be your next target. Above that, well, then we start to get bigger and bigger in gaps. That's ultimately the reason I'm targeting 80 is because that is the primary projection of this crap here. also matches up with the 786 of this Guardian, right? $80 to $94, basically huge zone. But, you know, $81 to 83, and then 92 to 94, 2 targets. Right? I don't think it's crazy to think AVAX could potentially get here. I don't think so at all. Right? They didn't want to think ENA was going to, go 200 and something % from the lows. No, but the fact of the matter is, it did. Right? When I gave Farcoin entry at 20 cents, did anyone think it's going to go so high? No, but the fact of the matter is, it did. We don't know if it's going to happen or not. It looks impossible looking at the chart because it's not happened yet. Right? But that's not what trading's about. Trading's about making these decisions before the move has happened. Right? And then not being surprised when eventually you do get those big green candles and bullish new stocks coming out of nowhere for whatever project you're looking at. Once again, rotating back to the start of the stream, LAC being another example of this, the stock. We make the decisions before the news comes out. After the news comes out, it's too late. Right? So AVAX, what I would definitely consider for those of you looking to perhaps get an old play off, try to build some positions, right? As long as the retest is successful, AVAX right here is one I would really consider. Doge, of course, I mentioned Doge many times. I think Doge will be a outperformer this cycle. I think Doge will do very, very well. It's just literally grinding high. I think AVAX looks better in terms of like risk management right now, but that doesn't mean Doge looks shit, right? If you want to just have a bag of something and forget about it for a long term, when I say long term, until you think the market's top for this cycle, Doge would be another play. Of course, like I've said, ETH against BTC, I'm now doing regular size ups on this every day, just DCAs, right? Opening a position here, not really looking at where it is, just doing time-based DCAs, because now I've literally from $10 up to 2,800 at peak, right? Right now it's currently $10 to it's 1,600 right now, so I've got a $1,600 buffer still, right? So I'm just gonna slowly size up. If it goes lower, size up even more, because this is the first proper pullback we've had on ETH against BTC. We haven't had one yet, right? I don't want to think I'm gonna get an 886 out of nowhere, so I'm just gonna take. Like I said, remember, if you're really bullish, you do not want an 886. You don't want a 618. What you want, it's a bit of a edge actually. So I'm not gonna mention it because this will go on YouTube, but you guys know what ratio we're after, right? So I'm just going to do this. Have we hit it yet? Very close to doing so. Very, very close to doing so. Right? So I think one more drive down ETH BTC possible. I don't care. I'm just going to slowly size up into here. Right? And if, go and put on the lower high and so on and so forth. Right? Like I said, bearish structure actually should raise its head. Then I'll just close the whole thing. Right? Very easy. I've already mentioned how ETH is actually very good if you want to look for a scalp to swing, medium time frame trade, because I don't think ETH is topped out. Right? Another one. Let's look at Say. Say is another one. Just because massive falling wedge. If you can get a successful retest here, I think Say outperform. Long term, I think Say does very, very well. Right? But of course, the fact of the matter is you got to be careful where you buy. Even if long term something does well, if you can't stomach drops, then this could give you like a 50% drop before you get like 500% higher. Right? That 50% drop is still going to be hell. So for Say, if you want to keep it really tight, I'd say just wait until you get above like 29 cents, basically. Right? We know there's yearly levels above as well, like we looked at earlier. So if we look at Say here, wait until you get above this, perhaps 29 to 31 cents before you get in. But otherwise, for Spot, I think Say is another one that I'd consider. We literally basically hit the 1.618, right? The deep crab basically completed here. You've hit T1, maybe you go to T2. If you do, I personally would also be adding more Say than at these prices. Fair value gap will fill. That'll be a retest of very, very key levels, right? So looking for structure down here to get in, size up more, maybe open up some swing trades with leverage as well. But otherwise, this massive falling wedge, right? Eventually, you are going to break out of it, and when you do, these are still the targets, per se. 1.13, remember, that has been hit. So this is not a completed wave structure yet, but you cannot be surprised. Do not be surprised if by the end of the cycle, right? That's of course that's given you believe the cycle hasn't topped out yet, you still think also going to get some insane rallies, right? $1.10 for Say, if it hits, do not be surprised. There is a wave structure that takes you directly to the 1.618, right? So it's uncompleted wave structure. It's only valid after it's completed. But you have, in terms of ratios, right, in the y-axis, you have a reason why $1.10 is a significant level, right? So there's a few right there, right? Say AVAX, ETH, right? Of course, Solana, I think the Solana will also move, right? Nice little pullback on Solana. If we get decay inflection area, that'd be the bid. Very easy to see right over here. Maybe you have buy seller zones here as well on Sol. I've not actually looked at it since the bit there you go, right? 2024 yearly levels, the orange, which is the 50 SMA still being hit. So we've got a cluster of yearly levels coming up. If that's successful for Sol, supply, 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 turn to demand basically, right? We'll turn to support. That'd be a good bid on Solana. If you want to buy spot or anything that's a front run, you can pull the trigger right now. Again, I can't tell you how you should enter, right? If you think, actually, I think this is it. I think we could go higher from here. You pull the trigger now. Maybe you don't go all in with 40%, leave 60% for if you go lower. If you think we definitely go lower, right? If for whatever reason you have that certainty, then maybe you enter with even less size or you just don't enter at all. You take the risk and think, okay, we're going to get lower, so I'm just going to hold on. It's up to you how you do this, okay? The fact of the matter is, these coins are the ones that have support now. They've had the insane pullback straight back down to support yearly levels, key fib levels, right? Key wave structure completion points, and for now are holding. Those are the type of ones you want to position yourself into, right? I think SWE still does very, very well, but to be honest, I don't think it looks for now as good as AVAX, say, so on and so forth in terms of structure, right? Just by no means does it look weak. I just prefer what say and where say and AVAX are in relation to, like, in a way, invalidation is, right? But SWE is also, don't get it, SWE is very easy to invalidate here, right? You could keep it very simple. Below $3.05, you cut. You keep it as simple as that, right? Because these are old wave structures here, so these you wouldn't be paying this much attention over the actual, like, fib ratios. So if you get below $3.05, you cut. You can keep it as simple as that. You have this nice little zone here. If it holds, it holds. If it doesn't, you cut, right? So if you want to bid, say, that's how I'd be doing. Below $3.05, I'd cut. Except below $3.05, you cut. But this, that's just some of the actual wave structures we're looking at. The CETAs as well, of course, right? Gone deeper than the Guardian. I'm still in with the 40% I went in with, right? Simply because it's spot bag. I'm just going to add when I think, okay, CETAs looks like it's actually done being a little bitch and the structure's coming in. If it doesn't, right, we just wait, because SWE hasn't made its move yet. That's the whole reason I'm holding CETAs, is because Aptos and SWE, I think still, I think both of them do well. If that does well, it's just a no-brainer CETAs is going to do well, right? That's the reason I'm holding this in the red for now with the 40% that we put in from ENA. But again, it's in the house trade, right? I got in with 40% of the profits we took after ENA doubled. So I'm just literally not even stressed about this. Just going to look at this. One structure shows positive signs. That's when I'll size up with the rest, right? Until then, we just don't do anything that's going to be premature, basically. Right? I don't want to make premature decisions yet on CETAs when it's not showing me strength, like the other coins are. CPOOL, the range could not be flipped, right? You had a couple weekly closes above, but the SMA held you down, and right now you're still back within the range. I don't think CPOOL is, like, over anything like this. I still think CPOOL does extremely well, right? This is just consolidation, right? It just wasn't ready yet. That's just what it is. Wasn't ready yet. So I got stopped to break even on this, right? No profits were taken on CPOOL. Stopped to break even, so $0 were made. In fact, probably paid a bit in funding fees instead. But no loss either, right? So just looking to rebuild that position on CPOOL to just run this up again, right? Just because we were a bit too early here does not mean I'm just going to give up on the trade. I still think CPOOL does well. The macro structures are still intact, so CPOOL is still an alt that I'm buying, that I'm building a position on, right? With swing leverage, 3x. That's just a few, right? There's way more we can go over, of course. Let's look at Pump, actually. For those of you not aware, Pump did an insane move. Yeah, bro, it's being recorded. Where's Pump? In fact, I think I updated this in the chart dump. I think this was the last thing off. And again, Pump is another example of what I mean when I say charts before anything else, right? Because when I first gave Pump, I gave it when it was absolutely crashing and we were shitting on it, right? And of course, then the chart went to a very, very key area, right? So if you guys look at Weatherman chart dump, that's where, if I forward this into the chat, how do I do that actually? General. Is it here? Is that it? Yeah, there you go. Right. Look at where the actual chart was on Pump when I first shared that. Right. So if I go back to the here. Again, this is literally an example of charts before everything else, right? The fact of the matter is, on pump, when this was first called, right, we've just completed some really, really nice macro structures. So if I actually go on pump, I think the easiest way to do this is if I just type in pump US. I believe this is the chart I was looking at. Or one of these. There we go. Right, here we go. So what we were saying on pump was, we were saying, okay, either we don't know where this is going to bottom, but some of the key areas where it could bottom is going to be these key targets. All we do is look for wave structure to come in, right? These were put in later. The main ones being the yellows, of course, right over here. That is what is on the screen. And in fact, yeah, that's that, right? If you look at the wall forward in the chat, the ABCD 2.24, 2.618, so on and so forth. Then when the actual structure started coming in there, right? Once price got to those key levels and we started to see, okay, there is support, structure is coming in, buyers are defending this area. Once we saw all of that and we saw the local wave structure, right, which is this right over here, right? This is where I call this one, where I said structure is starting to look better on pump. It was literally right over here. Again, before the insane move up, right? Before they pivoted to live stream, so on and so forth. When we say the charts tell you before, that's what we mean. Just waiting for it to load. It's so slow. My bad, guys. There we go. This right here, right? This is where we shared that. We had after we saw the structure come in, we had the actual completion of the wave structure, right? We had the type 2 where the type 2 held. Aggressive buying, aggressive selling. Aggressive sellers we know were not being rewarded. Every time aggressive selling came on, they were, it was slurped up, right? And that's the reason why this pump entry was given. Very simple, right? Not because I knew, okay, we're definitely going to go up from here, but there's many reasons, many arguments to be made for why you would take a bet to the upside here before everyone else. And then you go, pivot, there's 382 into support, right? T1, T2 into support. And then you extend, right? And then you hit everything. And then more aggressive sellers get trapped, and then boom, straight to the upside. But look, the actual entry, everything was given way before things even started to look bullish, right? The first sign of bullishness, first sign where we could actually make a bet, we made a bet. Right? That's what I mean when I say risk-reward based trades, where risk is minimal to you and reward is maximal. That's simply where you want to enter. Now, I didn't actually look at the pump chart again until we basically got the insane candle up, right? Otherwise, this right here on the macro would also have been a very, very nice opportunity if anyone had missed this original entry to enter again, because now you got higher time frame confirmation of, okay, this bullish area is being retested and again, aggressive sellers are not being rewarded. So now we have even more confidence for this area, even more, right? So that would have been a really nice size up trigger perhaps. Well, again, if anyone missed this entry, that would have been a nice entry. But again, I was already entered from here, so I didn't look at the chart again until we got the insane move up basically, right? And then we just took the TPs here because after such an insane move up and we've gone past all-time highs, well, there's no reason not to. That's the reason we took TPs here. In total, I took about 70% off pump, right? And now it's like, if I want to size up with that, I can. If I want to put that to something else, I can. And I probably will size up some more because I think pump can go higher, right? But again, just another example, right? We've looked at many examples today, and the reason I'm showing it is because many alts are still at this area. AVAX still at this area. SAY still at this area, right? Many alts are still at these areas where there's uncertainty. Think about the news that was coming out of pump here. Everyone was shitting on pump, right? This thing's over. This thing was a Jewish liquidity grab, so on and so forth. So much FUD. Boom. It feels like many alts are still at this position right now. Everyone thinking it's over, the market's top, so on and so forth. But they're giving you signs that, okay, but if you were to manage your risk and be clever with how you deploy and how you validate your levels, then there's opportunity here. That's where many alts are, right? And that's the reason I'm showing you these, is to show if you take the risk and you do end up being right, then you have a lot of room for upside. If you take the risk and you end up being wrong, you take a hit, sure, but you're entering areas where if you take a hit, it's going to be as minimal as it can be, given the risk you're taking. You're not entering here. You're not being one of these people who will say, oh, this looks good after seeing such an insane move up, and you think maybe I should hold because now my favorite call is telling me pump can go to $1, right? You don't want to enter here, because if you enter here, you're wrong by a lot. If you're wrong here, you're wrong by the best amount you can be wrong by, basically, right? And that's where many alts are right now. So you find alts like that where you can actually mitigate your risk. Don't enter alts where if you're wrong, you're going to lose 100%. There's no point, right? Unless you're making an all or nothing bet on a meme coin or something, or any coin. Unless you're making an all or nothing bet, there's no point in doing that. In fact, this looks like a decent place to size up on pump. I'm not even joking, right? So if anyone took the original trade and they took some profits and want to size up, this is honestly not a bad area to slowly start layering back into pump. Really isn't. Locally speaking, you have resistance, the 1 hour highs, but on a higher time frame basis, if you just want to size up for over the higher time frame, not a bad area to size up at all. Understand on the lower time frame, you might still get a pullback on the lower time frame. You know, you hit the highs, so you're sizing up at local resistance. Maybe wait for that to flip before you do so on the lower time frame. But on the higher time frame, it doesn't look like a bad place to size up, or find a way to mitigate your risk. But that's pump, right? So another one is Asta. On my main bag, I've got a little bag of this. On the challenge account, I've only got like $500 open on the challenge account. I had alerts set up for like a $1.20, so on and so forth. We never hit it, right? But when I got a notification for a dump towards like $1.30, I believe. Yeah. When I saw that, I was like, you know what? Looking at the actual candles that were coming in here, it did not look like, we're getting the double bottom sort of structure. It did not look like we're getting 120. So I just did like a small bid on the challenge account and my main. Only $500, like I said, on the challenge account. So I'm really waiting for a size up, but I just don't know if Asta's going to give us like much lower. I'm being very cautious here because I don't like, doesn't matter how good I think something is, I just don't like, it's just not in me to bid with insane size once I see like I'm not in from anywhere here, right? Yes, I understand this can go to double digits, right? But still, that doesn't mean it's going to go to double digits straight away. Doesn't mean you can't make a pit stop at, for example, 99 cents before it hit double digits, right? So I'm just being very cautious here with Asta. Given where I entered, I'm happy with not sizing up for now, right? For now. I'll keep an eye on things more. But yeah. Of course, there's going to be more alts, right, guys? If I go to Focus V2 again, we want to look at ETH betas, right? You want to look at, LDO, OP, ARB, right, GMX, so on and so forth. There's your ETH betas. Send, for SWE, there's Send, there's Blue, right? Blue had an insane move up, relative anyway to how the rest of the market's doing. Wait for it to load. Yeah, Blue had a really, really nice move up. So Blue and Send, they're both on SWE, right? That's why these are just low cap bets I'm taking on the SWE ecosystem because I think SWE will do well as an actual protocol. Send them. Oh, it's taking so long to load, bro. Probably not having actual Wi-Fi. Like I said, I'm hotspotting myself with my SIM card, guys, which is why it's really slow. I can't be on for too long today, guys. We might have to look at the I'm gonna have to look at the stocks properly in like a few days' time, brother. So, because I've got a flight and a train to catch again early morning to go to Laos tomorrow for a few days, around 4 days. But I'll look at everything. I'll try to look at it on my phone, right? But the problem with trying to chart on your phone, especially with how we do it, it's very fiddly, right? I'll try and look at it on my phone when I'm on the train. If not, as soon as I'm back, I'll look at all the stocks and we'll go through everything properly then. So Send and Blue, right? These are my low cap bets. Blue's doing well, just ranging for now, so I wouldn't be surprised if this attacks the low again. But hopefully, again, the reason why I like both of these, already explained this, right, in the post when I first shared them months ago. But completed wave structures. right? If you look at completed wave structures on these two, we're looking at 4 students, I believe. Yeah. So if we go to Bloom and Send, they both have this one or not. Okay, not this one. Which one did I do it on? Maybe this. And so I'll just keep going until I find where I did it. Yeah, there we go. The structure is not to be faded, in my opinion, right? Look, macro 886 followed by 2 other 886s. You're literally still within your, let's say, PRZ zone, right? You could think of this just as a T2 to this structure going on over here. I really like Send. Send looks good. I really like Blue. If we take a look at what Blue's doing, it's going to be similar, right? 886s were hit. Come on. Just load. There you go. Right? Literally, that was the entry given. That was the play. That was the play given. Right? Look, same thing. 886. Boom. M shape. Right? And now you're at the 618, 382, so on and so forth. Could you get a T2 again? Rotate back to the lows. Maybe take the lows before go high. Yes. Right? Or you could also just flip this and just keep going higher. Either way, both of these have really nice returns. Right? Especially when I first called them, it was insane RR. Obviously, it's a bit riskier here now, especially if you're still considering this to be invalidation. So if you start entering here, you're going to want to try and find local invalidations because obviously, as you can expect, a move down all the way to 45%, 50% basically is not something you want to consider. Just don't do it. If you enter here like that, you're basically thinking all or nothing. Okay, so just think of local invalidations if you get in. The risk of you getting stopped out is higher, of course, but like I said, it's a trade-off. If you don't enter when it's the scariest to do so, and you settle for, I want a few green candles before I enter because it's a bit easier to enter. The trade-off is you have a riskier entry, right? But this was given away, again, Blue and Sen, still both really good, right? There's so many coins, guys. There's so many. Deep is another one, right? On the SWE ecosystem. Those are a few to consider. AVAX, ENA, of course, TON, right? TON's another coin. Looking at this we look at this for a very, very long time. Massive M shape on TON. Still holding above its 2023 yearly levels, right? If that's lost, then, you know, the 886 probably gets hit, right? Around $1.63. I'd love to pick up some more TON there. I've got stacked alerts here to make sure I don't miss it. In fact, they're not showing up. So I'm going to add alerts here. Let me add one there, and let me add one over here. There's no way I'm missing that. Perfect. Okay. So there's just stacked alerts on TON. If we get this, I just bid more TON. I think TON does well as a chain over the longer term, right? But there's so many guys, right? You know, if you're talking memes, there's Apu. In fact, let's look at Apu because I'm actually that's one I am red on, right? For the challenge account. Which one is Apu on? It's on main. The structure was looking so good, and next thing you know, it's fucking down. Yeah, boom. Terrible. Insane move down here on Apu. It was looking so nice here as well. That's the thing. I'm not selling Apu at these lows, right? Call me stupid, but I'm just there's no way I'm selling this at the lowest point on the chart. I'm just gonna firm this one. Hopefully, what we do see is something like this, right? At this point, it's a bit of a sweep the lows, reclaim, and go high. After the lows are swept, if we actually go in and then we go to start put some sort of high low in, I will size up on that. As crazy as it sounds, I will, right? Because literally everything's been taken off this chart. And if Pepe does well, I think Apu as a derivative will do well. It's a meme coin, right? It's just not where liquidity is right now, so we can't be surprised if shit like this, if we're being hit with shit like this. The good thing about memes is shit like this can very easily do shit like that, right? We just need attention on this coin. And I think if memes do pop and Pepe goes, Apu as a derivative will also go. And I think Pepe will go. Therefore, I'm still cautiously optimistic that Apu itself will go, right? But otherwise, right now, in fact, if you were not in Apu, right, and you want to get in, I would very much actually do so here, right? If we like sweep this and we close above, so on and so forth, I'll just start DCing into Apu, right, with some of the money on the table right now, as a meme bet, right? But you could not ask for a more low risk bet on Apu. The fact of the matter is, if you enter here, your invalidation is simple. If you start closing below the lowest point on the chart that you see right now, you just can't. It's virtually non-existent risk. obviously the risk is there, but I'm saying the risk is very, very low compared to even if you just target to range highs, right, from where you currently are. Like, do you know what you're trying to say? It's like, even just to this range highs, you have an insane return on APU based off where we are, right? And if we do go, once again, I'm not even thinking, oh, we're going to make new highs or whatever. I don't really care about that. I'm just thinking, okay, some feasible targets, right over here, like over here, like over here, something like this. You still have some nice returns you could get on this coin from those lows, right? So believe it or not, that APU right there, that looks very, very good. It looks very, very good. In terms of an entry to invalidation ratio, in terms of RR, basically, APU looks good. Yeah. Link, there's so many guys. Link, right? Aave, nice little pullbacks on those before. They will carry on higher, in my opinion. All of these were given in the altcoin section. Link, Aave, FET, right? Actually, I don't think FET's moved much since entry. Still not, we've still not been brought back to entry, but look where it is. Macro. That is your macro standard deviation value area high. With your buy, there's a buy seller zone there, and you're retesting it. If you're not going to take especially if you're leverage trading, even for spot, if you're not going, if you look for entries, these are the type of areas where you pay attention, and these are the type of areas where you take a bet, where invalidation is clear, where risk is easy to manage, right? If you guys entered Fed when I first called it, you should still be in the green. You've not been stopped out on this, right? Arrow, another example of charts before everything else. This was called way ahead of time. We were up huge on this. Now you're retesting your first zone. I fully expect this to go higher. Yeah, there's so many guys. But yeah, we will do a proper altcoin stream at some point. But I feel like you do not need to be in a million different altcoins as well. Just choose a few and just size into the good ones, right? Let's look at KTA. All the hype, boom, done. This is why I did not give a entry on this, especially when we had the insane move up, right? I remember looking at this here thinking, oh, should I call this? I held back because when you're seeing all of these signs, we were looking at these live trap traders at all-time highs, not successful in pushing up. You've got to be a bit wary. That's why I teach you guys these things. Now, if you want to look for entries on KTA, be my guest. Enter here. Do a sizable DCA. If you get down towards 38 cents, cut if you get below. Or if you want to play level by level, enter here. Maybe cut if you get below 49.76 and enter again at 38. Or if you reclaim. There's many ways you can actually manage a risk here now, right? KTA, if you want to get in now, good entry. Honestly, good entry. For a long-term play, good entry. But yeah. So we've gone over a few today, guys. Like I said, we'll touch on stocks next time, brother, because I really need to get some sleep before sleep. Short ENR directly when the market is open tomorrow. So maybe you can have some more stock. Have a little bit of time left. Okay, yeah. Let's take a look at ENR then for you, bro. And then we'll take it from there. 1 second. Okay, so let's go to stocks. Yeah, let's do it here. Let's go to stocks and then ENR. Siemens Energy AG XCTR or NYSE, which actually no, it's this one, isn't it? Yeah, okay, let's go with XCTR. Let's take a look at this baby. Okay, nice move up from $20. Load this up, right? We don't need to worry about trap traders. This has been a buy program since 2024 April. Right, potential. I can see a potential. I can see your reasons for a short already. First of all, there is a very clear attempted trend shift, a potential inverted smiley face. I mean, take a look. You are holding your 50. You're holding, even on the daily, you're holding all your EMAs for now, however. EMAs and SMAs. But if we were to do this level by level, let's take a look. Let's go to the yearly. That's going to do us no good. 6 months is going to do us no good either. Well, no, we had a flat top. That's been taken. 4 months. There we go. Okay, so I mean, you're above your 4-month level too. 97.78. Three-day, weekly. Let's take a look. Okay, so your weekly seller. And I would say yes. I mean, risk to reward wise, you've got it very, very easy. So, for example, let's say I would base my short on, do you open above or below 97.78? I think, just as a line in the sand. If you open above this and you struggle to get below, I think this has a nice chance to actually resume back up towards, like, higher targets, basically. That's your latest. That's the highest time frame level we can get on the screen right now. 6 months of flat candle. It's above all that. We know daily's above all moving averages, so that's something to be wary of as well. So if the open is above 97.78 and you cannot get below it, I would be wary of shorting strength, basically, right? But if by the time you open you can get below this, then basically looking at something like this. You can keep it extremely, extremely tight. Risk to reward of 3. First and foremost, I just target this. And of course, you can look at 6 months, 12 months, so on and so forth for more buy-seller zones, whatever it may be they're using. Even fixed range volume profiles, should you use them. But really what you want is, do you accept above 97.78 or not? Because if you accept above this, again, there's not much stopping you from just going towards 104 on the higher time frame, right? So the line in the sand is going to be 97.78. You want acceptance of under that if you're looking for a short tomorrow. Oh, I didn't even notice wave structures. Let's take a look. Very nice. That's extremely clean. That looks like it's from the actual pivot low as well. So I see it. Let's take a look. Yeah, I see that. Okay. I see what you're looking at. Okay, so that changes things a bit because now you have a bigger zone to consider. So 382, nice. Let's go for, okay, so 2.24 is here, above 2.24. 2.24 was hit over here. Come on, laptop. Please. There, okay, 2.24. And then the next one, of course, is the 2.618, which we hit right over here. I see that. Okay, so that changes things. So let's say, again, open still going to be important. I think if you open above 97.78, you probably do go to tag the 100.5. Like basically, you probably do go to tag the 2.618. If you accept above the 2.618, this will send. You probably go towards the 3.14 next. Because you've taken the lows, right? So there's two ways to look at this. This is either a trend shift and you make a lower high, and you roll over. Or this was a deviation, right? You've created some sort of wonky smiley face, and then you're going to put a new high in, right? So sort of Quasimodoing your way up. If it is the latter, then the 3.14 is where this can very easily end up. 3.14 to 3.618, right? Because you've taken liquidity here. In terms of liquidity, you've swept some. So if that sweep of liquidity was what the market makers were after, right? Then, and your bullish structure gets reclaimed, then these will be the prices this goes to next. And it's important to know your flip side as well, right? This is not me saying, oh, your short is wrong. This is me trying to say, okay, you got to know when do you get invalidated, and what is your reason for invalidation. The reason for invalidation here is that is not a trend shift attempt, but rather a deviation to grab liquidity before displacing people out and then going higher, right? In which case, you know that you have higher target and price discovery ahead of you, which is going to warn you not to stick with the losing short should you go into the red if you do take that short, right? Because you then know that this all becomes potential targets all the way up over here. Many people hesitate to think about the flip side because, you know, if you think about what if I'm wrong, then you might lose confidence in your trade, or who likes to think about when they're wrong, right? But in trading, it's very important to know what is the flip side of whatever you are thinking about doing. And at what point should you consider perhaps this flip side is actually now the more likely scenario, right? So that's the last one. Let's go to B. That right there is the AB equals CD 3.6.8. There we go. So those are your macro targets. We have rejected off the second one for now anyway. We SFP'd, right, on the weekly. Let's take a look. Yeah, SFP'd off it. Heading back there again. So I think the weekly close should have this throw me off because I'm in Bangkok time right now. It's Monday in Bangkok, so the weekly close should have happened, but it hasn't happened yet in terms of UTC. It's going to happen in 8 hours, something like that, 7-8 hours. But yeah, so as a zone, you have 97 to 100, right? The line in the sun for me is 97.78. If you open below that, by the time basically tomorrow's market opens, then I think you go back down towards the 2.24 to the 90 level, right? That's where you'd really watch for reactions to further decide, do you stick with the short, do you trim some? Perhaps you break down on the low high, do you size up, right? Or if you start accepting above the 2.618 here, I think this could very well be a liquidity grab, locally speaking, and you could actually end up putting new highs in, right? So it's actually very important what happens with the following few candles, because it's going to dictate, do you get enough sort of structure for people to warrant getting into shorts, getting into looking for moves to the downside, or do you keep that momentum up and do you show strength and put new highs in, right? So that's what I think about this, bro. I think I can see your reasoning for a short for sure, but it's also the fact that you're holding all your moving averages, right? Even on the daily. I forget the weekly. I have everything on the weekly. Even on the daily, you're holding everything, and you've successfully backtested at the end of the day there your key level. You put a smiley face in, right? You're getting a reaction off it. That daily candle there, that bearish candle got eaten up. So we cannot be surprised if we accept above 100.5, if we go for 112 to 122 next. 112 being the first target, and 122 after. But this is extremely, extremely beautiful area to look for that reason for a short, right? So I can see why you're looking for a short here. Good catch, bro. I know that was a bit long-winded. Just wanted to give a thorough explanation of what I'm seeing. This is a trigger-based short. You don't set a limit for this one, right? Once the price opens, you see what kind of reaction comes in, and then you take that early morning. If you're doing time-based trading, New York Open, whatever, you take that trade based on that. but a very pivotal area for sure. Easy to manage risk, easy to look for invalidations. There. Yeah, I can see that. The open is going to dictate this. Do we validate the bearish thesis? Do we validate the bullish thesis? It's going to be on the open. Have your line in the sand, have your invalidation. And I think invalidation is very, very easy here. If you accept above the 2.618, I'll just cut this. Because we can see that's pretty much going to go to all-time highs again if we accept above 100, right? So invalidation should be pretty easy. Above 100.5, basically, or whatever your measure 2.618 is. Above that, if you accept above it, you just cut. Right? Invalidation is clear enough. But the open tomorrow is going to dictate, okay, which side is actually showing strength, right? And that's going to validate, does the smiley play out to higher prices with this being a liquidity grade where the sellers were trapped? Or are we indeed forming a higher time frame bearish smiley with the last high low, that let's say the higher high being taken out and a lower high coming in, right? This area is going to dictate which of those gets validated. So it's very important to actually see what happens here. Yeah, so this is a good catch, bro. I'll keep an eye on this one as well. No problem at all, bro. It's my pleasure, man. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it from me today. I really need to get some sleep, or attempt to get some sleep anyway, because I'm a bit lagged from Vietnam. But I'm going to be going off to Laos tomorrow. Really wanted to explore Laos, so got a plane ticket and a train ticket as well. Plane and a train booked earlier. So I'm going to get some sleep for that. Don't want to be groggy in the morning. But after I'm back, again, we'll run up more streams. I'll do one in CC server as well, in John's server. Do more here. And then, again, October 14th, 15th is I'll be back in the UK for a bit. We'll do the consolidation sessions for core and advanced done. And after that, the core and advanced will be properly finished. And then I can probably get the next batch in, right, for whoever was wanting to come in. I think from next year, I'm going to drastically reduce the number of one-on-one people I take and just stick with group classes instead, because it's so much easier on time. After I'll have the second restaurant up and running as well. I need to do more stuff for the clothing line, so it's going to be very hectic from next year. Not to mention the hedge fund as well, of course. So I'll reduce the number of one-on-ones, probably increase my prices to sort of keep in match. So only those who really want to do it for the one-on-ones. I'll just do group classes for like the new people. But yeah. If I do it, it'll be or rather whenever I do it, it'll be probably next year. Yeah, brother. Definitely be next year. Just not sure what time yet, but I'll do it. I know some people have already paid for that. If I can't do it for like a long period of time, I'll just refund those people that have paid for it already. But if I can do it, then of course we'll just go ahead with it. But yeah, so that's gonna be it from me anyway, guys. I'll see you guys soon. Yeah, I'll stay in chat. I'll be keeping an eye on Discord for any messages if anything drastic happens. But hopefully this was a good stream. You guys enjoyed it. If you have any other questions or anything, just put it in the crypto chat, or reach out in DMs, right, for something more private. But apart from that, right, I'll end the recording here, and I'll see you guys soon. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks, bro. Thanks, brother. No problem. It was my pleasure. All right, Max, Chu, CJ. Bye-bye.